My ex-wife took me to court for child support, for a kid that wasn't mine. When the judge asked her for proof, she smirked and said, he was always too dumb to question it. My lawyer slid a DNA test across the table and said, then explain this. The room fell silent as her new husband backed away from her. My name's Bradley Cooper. No, not that Bradley Cooper. I'm just a 44-year-old guy from Grand Rapids, Michigan, who fixes heating and air conditioning systems for a living. I'm about as regular as they come. I get up before the sun, work until my back feels like snapping in two, eat whatever's easy, and fall asleep on the couch most nights. Nothing about my life ever screamed story worth telling. At least, not until last year. It started like most things do, quiet, normal, unremarkable. I was living in a 2-bedroom house on Franklin Street, a tired little place with peeling blue paint and a front porch that creaked like it was complaining about the weather. My world, small as it was, revolved around work and visits with my daughter, Macy. Macy was 8, bright and funny, and had this way of looking at you like she could see right through all the nonsense. She lived with my ex-wife, Tara, most of the time. I got every other weekend and the occasional Wednesday night if I wasn't pulling overtime. It wasn't enough, but it was what the court gave me. Tara and I had been divorced for 2 years at that point. If you'd asked me why, I probably would have mumbled something about growing apart or communication issues. The truth was harder. Tara liked attention, always had. And somewhere along the way, my worn-out love and her restless heart stopped matching up. Still, I believed she was a good mom. I really did. And I believed, with all my heart, that Macy was mine. That belief was about to get smashed into a million sharp pieces. One Tuesday afternoon, I came home from work to find a thick envelope stuck in my screen door. At first, I thought it was just junk mail. But when I saw the return address, a lawyer's office downtown, my gut tightened. Inside was a summons. Tara was taking me to court. She claimed I'd been underpaying child support and owed her nearly 40 grand. I sat down hard on the porch steps, the envelope flapping in the wind next to me. My hands were shaking. Not from fear exactly, but from the pure injustice of it. I paid every damn cent the court ordered. On time. Even when it meant eating ramen for a week straight. I called her, thinking there had to be a mistake. Maybe a misunderstanding. When she answered, her voice was syrupy sweet. Too sweet. Brad. Honey, she said, dragging out the words like she was talking to a toddler. You know you're not exactly great with money. You just got confused. I opened my mouth to argue, but she hung up before I could get a word in. Just like that. The court date was set for 3 weeks later. 3 weeks of tossing and turning at night, wondering what the hell she was playing at. 3 weeks of working longer hours just to keep my mind from spinning. I hired a lawyer, Damon Reyes. He was younger than me, sharp-eyed, with a calmness that made me trust him even though everything in my life was spinning out of control. First meeting, he leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. Bradley, he said, we're gonna fight this. Hard. I nodded, not trusting my voice. And there's one thing we should do, he added carefully. It's routine in cases like this. Just to be sure, I recommend a DNA test. I blinked at him. A DNA test. I repeated, like he'd spoken a foreign language. He nodded. For Macy, he said gently, just to cover every angle. At first, I was insulted. Furious, even. Macy was my daughter. End of story. But Damon explained that if Tara was willing to lie about money, who knew what else she might be hiding? Reluctantly, I agreed. It took 2 swabs and a week of hellish waiting. When the results came in, Damon called me to his office. He didn't say anything over the phone, just told me to come in. I sat in his small, neat office, my palms sweating against my jeans, while he slid the paper across the desk. I stared at it. Read it once. Then again. 0% probability of paternity. It felt like someone had kicked me in the chest. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The ground under my feet didn't feel real. Macy wasn't mine. I stumbled out of Damon's office into the bright afternoon sun, blinking stupidly at the normal world going on around me. People walking dogs. Kids riding bikes. A couple laughing over coffee. How could everything look the same when my entire universe had just collapsed? The days leading up to court were a blur. I went to work. I ate. Or maybe I didn't. I honestly can't remember. All I know is I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Macy's face. Heard her laughing. Remembered the way she used to run into my arms, calling me daddy. Court day came. The courtroom smelled like old paper and cheap disinfectant. I sat at the long wooden table next to Damon, heart hammering so loud I thought everyone could hear it. Tara breezed in wearing a pink dress that hugged her body too tight for the occasion. Her new husband, Vince, slouched in behind her, looking like he wished he was anywhere else. When the judge, a woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper voice, called the case, Tara practically bounced to the witness stand. She laid it on thick. Talked about how I'd neglected my responsibilities. How I shortchanged Macy. Finally, the judge asked, Ms. Wells, do you have any evidence to support your claims? Tara smirked. Actually smirked. He was always too dumb to question it, she said with a little shrug, like we were talking about forgetting to take out the trash, not accusing me of neglecting my own kid. My stomach flipped. My hands clenched into fists on my lap. Damon stood smoothly, not a hair out of place, and slid a folder onto the table. Your Honor, he said, his voice calm, almost bored. We'd like to submit this into evidence. The judge flipped it open. Her eyes narrowed. Then she looked at Tara. Ms. Wells, are you aware that Mr. Cooper is not the biological father of Macy Wells? Tara's face lost its color so fast, it was like watching a sunburn peel off. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Finally, she said, voice trembling. He raised her. He's her dad. The judge's mouth tightened. That may be true emotionally, she said coolly, but legally and financially, it is highly relevant. The courtroom was dead silent. Vince leaned away from Tara like she was contagious. The rest of it went by in a daze. The case? Dismissed. Tara? Ordered to pay my legal fees. An investigation? Opened. Vince. Gone from her life within weeks, according to what little I heard through mutual friends. And me? I went home. I sat on the edge of my bed. And I cried. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I cried until there was nothing left inside me but a hollow, aching emptiness. I tried reaching out to Macy, but Tara blocked me on everything. I sent a birthday card through her school, tucked a note inside telling her how much I loved her, how none of this was her fault. I don't know if she ever got it. I haven't seen her since. And now the days stretch long and empty ahead of me. I go to work. I can't come home. I sit in the same chair, staring at the same walls, wondering how everything could fall apart so fast. Some nights, I wake up gasping, heart pounding, convinced I heard Macy's voice calling for me from the hallway. But there's never anyone there. Just me, and the dark, and the memory of the little girl who was, and always will be, my daughter in every way that matters. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll ever see her again. If one day she'll find out the truth and come looking for me. All I know is that I'll be here. Waiting. Always waiting. The seasons turned while I sat still. Summer bled into fall. The leaves on the big oak in my front yard burned red and gold before giving up and dropping, one by one, like the slow ticking of a clock. Snow came early that year, thick and wet, clinging to the sagging roof. I shoveled my driveway like a man possessed, like maybe if I cleared enough space, life would find a way back to me. Work kept me busy. Michigan winters are hell on furnaces, and people don't like being cold. Calls came in day and night. Old ladies shivering in their drafty living rooms. Young couples panicking with newborns bundled in too many blankets. I answered every call. Didn't matter if it was Christmas Eve or 2 in the morning. It was easier than being alone with my thoughts. Sometimes, when I fixed a furnace in a house with a little girl, I'd catch myself staring a second too long, watching the way she clutched her doll or tugged on her dad's sleeve for attention. Every time, it felt like a punch to the gut. Every time, I smiled and said, "You've got a real sweetheart there," before packing up my tools and getting the hell out. I stopped going places I used to go with Macy. The park down on Cherry Street. The ice cream shop with the bubblegum pink walls. The library where she used to sit cross-legged on the carpet, flipping through books too big for her hands. It hurt too much. At night, I'd sit at the kitchen table with a beer sweating in my hand, the TV on low just for the noise. I kept the birthday card I sent her, the one that probably never reached her, tucked in a drawer. Every so often, I'd pull it out and read the note I wrote, the ink smudged from where my hand shook writing it. "I will always love you," it said. No matter what. Time dragged on, slow and heavy. Once, about 6 months after the court date, I saw Tara at the Meyer grocery store on 28th Street. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and chose not to. She looked different. Thinner. Her hair was darker, shorter. She pushed a cart with a toddler inside. Not Macy. Another kid. Maybe Vince's. Or maybe someone else's. She looked tired. I didn't approach her. I didn't say a word. Just turned down another aisle and left without buying anything. I didn't want a scene. I didn't want anything from her anymore. The anger that had burned so hot in me right after the courtroom cooled into something colder, quieter. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But a kind of acceptance. Some people are just broken in ways you can't fix. I started seeing a therapist around that time. A woman named Dr. Hastings with kind eyes in an office that smelled like cinnamon. I didn't know what to say at first. Just sat there, shrugging, picking at the loose thread on my jeans. After a few sessions, it started pouring out. The betrayal. The loss. The bone-deep fear that Macy would grow up thinking I abandoned her. Dr. Hastings listened. She didn't judge. She didn't offer easy answers. But she helped me start breathing again. One day, near the end of a session, she asked, "Have you thought about writing to her?" I looked at her, confused. Tara blocked me everywhere. She smiled gently. "I don't mean through Tara. I mean, write letters. Keep them. Someday, Macy might come looking for you. And you'll have a record. Proof that you never stopped thinking about her." The idea lodged in my brain and wouldn't leave. That night, I sat down at the kitchen table with a battered notebook and started writing. Dear Macy, I wrote. Today, I fixed a furnace in a little yellow house that smelled like cinnamon rolls. The little girl who lived there reminded me of you. She had your same serious look when she was concentrating. I miss you every day. I filled pages like that. Small things, big things, memories, hopes. It didn't fix anything, but it helped me breathe a little easier. Spring came, slow and wet. The snow melted into rivers that carved dirty trails through the city streets. I worked, I wrote, I lived. One night, about a year after the court case, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was late, nearly midnight, and I almost let it go to voicemail. Something told me to answer. Hello, I said, voice rough with sleep. There was a pause, a small one, heavy with meaning. Then a girl's voice, trembling, whispered, Is this Bradley Cooper? My heart stopped. Macy, I said, sitting bolt upright. Another pause. Then, no. My name's Ellie. I think you knew my sister. Confused, I rubbed my eyes. Your sister? Her name was Macy Wells, the girl said. Was. Not as. The world tilted around me. Before I could say anything, she rushed on, words tumbling out in a mess. I found some letters, she said. Old ones. Stuff Mom kept hidden. I think Macy tried to find you. Before her voice broke. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. The line buzzed in my ear. And just like that, everything changed again. I sat there, phone pressed so hard against my ear it hurt, trying to make sense of what the girl had said. Macy's sister? Was. I gripped the edge of the table until my knuckles turned white. What do you mean before she? I forced the words out, even though my throat felt tight enough to strangle me. On the other end of the line, there was a shaky breath, like she was trying to hold herself together with spit and hope. Macy passed away last year. Ellie said finally, voice so small I almost didn't hear it. Everything in the world seemed to slow down, collapse inward. The buzzing of the refrigerator. The tick of the old clock over the stove. My own breathing. Gone. Just like that. I don't know how long I sat there, not saying anything. Because what the hell do you say to that? How do you react when the world guts you twice? Ellie started talking again, her voice softer, more careful. I found her stuff. Mom kept it hidden. I think she didn't want anyone to know Macy was looking for you. She had letters. Old drawings. She kept asking about you. Even after, she broke off. Even after Tara told her whatever lies she fed Macy. I closed my eyes. My hand shook so badly, I had to set the phone down on the speaker before I dropped it. What happened to her? I managed to ask. There was a long, hollow silence. She got sick, Ellie said finally. Leukemia. It was fast. 6 months from diagnosis to the end. The words hit harder than any punch I'd ever taken. Harder than hearing I wasn't Macy's biological father. Harder than standing in that courtroom while Tara lied through her teeth. I wasn't there. I hadn't even known. She was sick. She was dying. And I was living my small, stupid life, writing letters to a little girl who was slipping away. Ellie sniffed on the other end of the line, a soft, broken sound. I just thought you should know, she whispered. I wanted to ask a million questions. Where she was buried. If there was a service. If Macy ever asked for me at the end. If she hated me. If she forgave me. But my voice was gone. Stolen by grief. All I could do was sit there, the weight of it pressing me into the chair like gravity had tripled. Thank you, I said eventually, my voice rough and unfamiliar. Ellie hesitated. There's more. If you want. I gripped the phone like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to this earth. Please, I croaked. Ellie's voice grew a little stronger, like she'd been waiting for me to say that. I found a journal. Macy's. She wrote in it a lot in those last few months. She talked about you. She said she didn't care about blood. She said you were her real dad. Always. I bowed my head over the table, the first real tears falling hot and fast down my face. She wanted to find you, Ellie said. She was saving up birthday money, planning it all out. She said when she turned 18, she was going to come find you. I wiped my face roughly with the back of my hand. Can I see it? I asked, hating how desperate I sounded. There was a pause, then a quiet, yeah, I think she'd want you to. Ellie gave me an address. A house about 40 minutes north of town, near Rockford. She sounded scared, like she didn't know if she was doing the right thing, but determined anyway. I scribbled the address down on a crumpled envelope. We hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing, listening to the hum of the house around me. Then I stood up, pulled on a jacket, grabbed my keys. I didn't think. I just moved, the way your body moves when your brain is too full to function. The night air was cold against my face as I got into the truck. The engine roared to life, coughing a little before settling into its usual grumble. I backed out of the driveway, tires crunching over old, frozen snow. The roads were almost empty. Just me and the blinking streetlights and the long, dark stretch of highway. I drove with the window cracked, the cold air biting at my skin, keeping me awake. My mind raced faster than the truck. memories flooding in too fast to hold on to. Macy's first steps across the living room floor, arms outstretched, squealing with laughter. The way she used to fall asleep in the back seat, head lolling to one side, clutching her battered stuffed bunny. The time she scraped her knee at the park and tried so hard not to cry, lip trembling, until I scooped her up and told her it was okay to be tough and cry at the same time. Every memory is sharp and aching. The farther I drove, the tighter my chest felt. By the time I pulled onto the narrow gravel driveway of the address Ellie gave me, I was shaking. The house was small and squat, a single porch light spilling a weak glow onto the snow-dusted steps. The windows were dark. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the door, heart hammering against my ribs. Then the porch light flicked twice. A signal. I climbed out of the truck, my boots crunching loudly in the quiet. My hands were fists at my sides, not from anger, but from the effort it took to keep from falling apart right there. The door opened slowly, and a girl stepped out, younger than I expected, maybe 17, with long brown hair and eyes too old for her face. Ellie. She clutched a thick, battered notebook to her chest. For a second, we just stared at each other, two strangers linked by the same missing piece. Then, wordlessly, she stepped forward and held out the journal. I took it with hands that barely worked. Up close, I could see the worn edges, the doodles Macy used to draw, stars, flowers, hearts. I swallowed hard against the lump rising in my throat. Ellie shifted awkwardly. "There's more inside," she said. "Pictures. Notes. She wrote you letters, too. Stuff she never got to send." I nodded, unable to speak. "Take your time," Ellie whispered. "I'll be inside if you need anything." She backed away, leaving me alone on the porch. I stood there for a long moment, the journal heavy in my hands. Finally, I sank down onto the cold steps, the wood biting into my legs, and opened it. The first page was messy, scrawled in Macy's uneven handwriting. "Dear Dad, I don't know if you miss me, but I miss you every day. I wish you could come get me." The words blurred as fresh tears filled my eyes. I turned the page. Another letter. Another. Each one a little piece of her heart. Each one a dagger in mine. And I kept reading, long into the night, as the cold crept into my bones and the stars wheeled silently overhead. I don't know how long I sat there on that porch, reading Macy's journal by the pale porch light. The cold seeped into my bones, but I didn't care. Page after page, letter after letter, I soaked in every word Macy had written. Her hopes, her fears, her love for me, stubborn and fierce, shining through even when Tara had tried to poison it. The last few entries broke me. She wrote about being tired all the time, about how her mom kept telling her I didn't care, about how she didn't believe it, not really, but some nights she wondered. She never stopped loving me. Not once. When the sky started to lighten with the first hints of morning, I closed the journal carefully, my hands trembling. Ellie came out again, wrapped in a thick sweater, a styrofoam cup of coffee in her hands. She sat down beside me without a word, passing the coffee over. We sat in silence for a while, the kind that feels more like understanding than awkwardness. Finally, I said, "Thank you for calling me. For this." She nodded, looking out at the gray dawn. "I hated what she did to Macy," Ellie said after a while, her voice bitter. "Mom never treated her right. She always acted like Macy was a burden." I clenched the coffee cup so tight the lid popped. "She took everything from her," Ellie whispered. "From you." The anger I'd been keeping bottled up for over a year roared back to life in my chest, hot and blinding. Tara had stolen Macy's right to know me, stolen our time, lied, manipulated, used Macy like a pawn in her selfish little games. I couldn't undo what had been done, but I sure as hell wasn't going to let her get away with it either. A plan started forming in my head. Slow, careful, real, no violence, no screaming matches. Something quieter, smarter, something that would hurt in all the ways that mattered. Over the next few weeks, I got to work. Ellie helped me gather everything. The journal, the letters, old photos of Macy and me together, copies of the court documents, even some screenshots she had from Macy's old Facebook account before Tara had wiped it. I wasn't interested in gossip or cheap revenge. I wanted the truth out. I contacted a lawyer. A different one this time. A woman named Lana Burke who specialized in wrongful alienation cases and defamation. It took weeks of meetings, document gathering, and strategy sessions. Slowly, carefully, we built a case. In Michigan, you can't sue someone for parental alienation the way you can for other things, but there are ways. Emotional damages, defamation, fraud, especially in light of the false child support claims. Tara had weaponized the courts against me once. Now, it was my turn to use the system, properly, legally, against her. When the lawsuit was filed, it hit Tara like a freight train. Fraud, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The papers were served to her at her job, a receptionist gig at some small dentist's office, right in front of her boss. I heard through the grapevine that she caused a huge scene, screaming, crying, begging the dentist not to fire her. But of course they did. No one wants an employee facing fraud charges in front of patients. The lawsuit dragged on for months. Tara tried every trick in the book, claiming she didn't know I wasn't Macy's father, playing the victim, sobbing in court. But every lie she told crumbled under the mountain of evidence we brought. The journal was the final blow. When the judge read excerpts aloud, Macy's own words about how Tara lied, how she kept her from me. Even the court reporter looked away. Tara sat there, pale and trembling, while the judge ruled in my favor. The judgment was harsh, in all the right ways. She owed me over $250,000 in damages. More importantly, the judge ordered her to issue a public apology, not just to me, but acknowledging that she had lied about Macy's paternity and deliberately kept her from me. It had to be posted, publicly, on all her social media accounts and submitted in writing to the local newspaper, the same one that had published her engagement announcement to Vince years earlier. Tara's reputation, already hanging by a thread, disintegrated. Friends she had gossiped with turned their backs. Family members, the few decent ones, called her out publicly. Her world shrank into a small, bitter shell. The money didn't matter to me as much as the truth being out. I didn't even care if I ever saw a dime of it. It was about setting the record straight. About making sure Macy's memory wasn't twisted by her lies. After the ruling, I stood outside the courthouse steps, feeling lighter than I had in years. The air was crisp and clean, the city bustling around me, unaware that for the first time in a long time, I could breathe without it hurting. Ellie met me there, bundled in a coat too big for her. She smiled, shy but genuine. She would have been proud, she said quietly. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Thank you, I said. It wasn't enough, but it was all I had. She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small. A key. She had a box, Ellie said. A memory box. She kept it hidden. I think you should have it. I took the key, feeling its weight settle into my palm. That night, I opened the box in my living room, the old house creaking softly around me. Inside were pictures, drawings, little notes Macy had written. One caught my eye, a crumpled piece of paper with a stick figure drawing of a man and a little girl holding hands. Above it, in Macy's messy handwriting, were 4 simple words, me and my dad. I pressed the drawing to my chest, tears blurring everything. The pain would never fully go away. The time we lost could never be given back. But I had the truth now. I had Macy's love, untainted by lies. And Tara? Tara had nothing left to hide behind. In the end, the truth was the only revenge I ever needed.